Dear ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to the Impact Life Hydrogen in MENA, setting direction for a booming hydrogen-based economy. I'm your host, Molly Huang, Head of Content of Leader Associates. Thank you so much for joining us today. COP27 is right around the corner. In less than 2 weeks, global head of states, ministries, climate practitioners, and CEOs will be meeting each other in Egypt for the largest annual gathering on climate action. Increasing momentum is directed to hydrogen as the fuel of future, with countries like Oman and Singapore successfully released their national hydrogen strategies in the past week and days. How's MENA catching the wave as the host of COP for the upcoming 2 years? Naturally, the public interest is high. And this is also what we are going to explore today. For today's agenda, we feel honored to have Mr. Dolf Gielen, Director of Innovation and Technology of IRENA, to help us lay the foundation picture of hydrogen market in MENA, followed by policy address from Egypt's Suez Canal Economic Zone by Mr. Seif Mustafa. Ms. Nawa from the UAE Energy Ministry was unfortunately caught a high fever in the morning. Nevertheless, she asked me to convey her sincere apologies and will kindly film a video for us after the presentation. Going forward, the third speech will be spotting on Turkey's hydrogen future as the region's newest star, presented by Dr. Celal of Turkey Energy, Nuclear and Mining Research Institute. Concluding today's talk, we'll also listen to private sector's perspective concerning the real projects landing and how they are going to facilitate the energy transition. Last but not least, an integral part of today would be our audience in front of the screen. Please don't hesitate to type down in the Q&A box should you have any questions for the speaker. We will try to accommodate as many as possible. A very brief introduction of us before I formally hand over the floor to our first speaker. Leader Associates is an international clean energy event organizer dedicated to renewable energy and green hydrogen. Today's live session also marks our global launch for the second Connecting Green Hydrogen MENA 2023, MENA's premium business and partnership building event on March 14th to 16th next year in Dubai, consisting of 1,500 leaders from the region and across the globe, such as Aqua, Engie, Petro Development Oman, BP, EDF, E.ON, Verbund, Boeing, and on and on. A specific H2 Tech Forum is also dedicated to the most advanced technologies that we have in the industry today. Humbly, we invite everyone to join this dialogue together and meet with your global counterparts. And that's all about us. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first presenter, Mr. Dolf Gielen, Director of Innovation and Technology of IRENA on stage. Dolf, are you here?
Yeah, thank you very much, Molly. Thank you for that introduction. And hello, everyone. Greetings from Abu Dhabi. I have prepared some slides for this introduction. Let me see if I can show you these. Good.
Yes, here you
go.
So,
thank you very much. So sorry for that. So as said, it's one of the most dynamic regions in hydrogen and hydrogen derivatives worldwide, both in terms of clean and green hydrogen development. And there's a number of reasons for that. First of all, the closeness to the markets in Europe, but also in India, plays an important role. There is the capability to finance these projects here in the region. And of course, there is a deep expertise with large energy projects, and all of that works in favor for this development. So if we move to the next slide, IRENA as an intergovernmental organization is working on hydrogen for some time. We get a lot of questions from our 168 member countries, have issued quite a lot of report on the production, transport, and also the utilization of hydrogen and the enabling frameworks that are needed to make that work. And you can find all that information on our website. So I'll show you now a bit of a cross-section of the elements that are relevant here for the discussion today. So if you move to the next slide, a bit about the economics of hydrogen, and especially of green hydrogen. So there are two key cost components. One is you need cheap renewable power, and the second one is the cost of electrolyzers need to come down. In terms of the electricity costs, at the moment 50-55 kilowatt hour per kilo of hydrogen are needed. So if it's 2 cents per kilowatt hour, we're talking $1 electricity costs. On top of that, there is the cost of the electrolyzer. So at the moment, somewhere between $800 and $1,200 per kilowatt. Expectation is that that will halve in this decade. And in fact, some of the Chinese projects are cheaper. But you need to be a little bit careful with these data because there's a mix-up of stack cost and full project cost. So the full project is roughly twice as expensive as the stack alone. So there's still some way to go in cost reduction. And apart from the production cost, of course, if you think about exports, you need to think about the transportation cost, the logistics. We think that long-term ammonia will be the cheapest transportation option. But at the moment, let's say transportation adds substantially to total supply costs in the case of international trade in the order of a few $1,000s per ton of hydrogen, so a few dollars per kilo. So the potential to reduce cost for green hydrogen are significant. Of course, it needs to compete initially with gray hydrogen, longer term perhaps with blue hydrogen. For blue hydrogen, the cost of natural gas is a key cost component. We think that production cost can be in the order of $1.50 per kilo of blue hydrogen, especially in the case of stranded assets. So longer term, green and blue will roughly have the same cost, but it depends a little bit on the regional resource endowment, which way it will go. And of course, the MENA region is unique in a sense that it has potential of both options. So if you move to the next slide, we did some trade analysis, quite extensive trade analysis, in fact. We looked at the resource potentials, we looked at the different trade vectors, and we looked at the integration into the specific national energy systems. And we concluded that the technical and economic resource potential is vast. It's about 10 times global total energy demand. You see the numbers here in exajoules, and especially MENA region and also sub-Saharan Africa have a huge potential to produce low-cost green hydrogen. And at the same time, there are some regions which don't have the same potential, especially in Europe and East Asia, and these regions are looking into these import opportunities. So what the lines show here is who's talking to whom. But that is something which is very dynamic and keeps changing over time. So this was the situation at the beginning of this year. We think longer term that around a quarter of all hydrogen will be traded internationally, about half via pipelines and about half via shipping. And again, MENA region is a little bit unique in a sense that you can also serve for example, the European market through pipelines, which has an important cost advantage. But all of this is still a little bit in early days, so we have to see how that develops. Next slide, please. So There is globally a very strong development of hydrogen, hydrogen economy. I took this data from a recent report of the Hydrogen Council. They identified worldwide more than 600 projects with more than 500 aiming for commissioning by 2030. So investment volume of $240 billion. The problem is that a lot of these projects are still in a kind of an aspirational stage. Only about 1/10 of these projects has reached financial investment decision. And so the financing and also security of demand to get that financing going are two critical components. And you see that these projects are spread worldwide. So EU, North America, Latin America, also Australia, a lot of developments. And while these numbers are impressive, it's still only 1/3 of what would be needed to be in line with a 1.5-degree scenario. So in fact, we need something like $750 billion investments by 2030. So gives you an idea of what the business opportunity is here. Now let's move to the MENA. I collected a few data sets on that. So if you move to the next slide. First data set is from the International Energy Agency. So they released their latest database a few weeks ago. And you can download it. That database has 47 projects in the region. And what jumps out is the large number of projects, especially in Egypt, in Oman, and in the UAE. And what also jumps out is that while there is a significant number of blue projects based on natural gas with CCS, it's really the production of green hydrogen through water electrolysis that dominates in this total project set with 39 out of 47 projects. And in total, these projects add up to around 5 million tons of hydrogen per year if they're fully realized, with 15 projects of more than 100 kilotons of hydrogen per year. And as I said, I mean, this is a database from a few weeks ago, but in fact, the developments in the region are going really fast. So this even underestimates what's actually ongoing. But again, with the footnote that a lot of these are MOUs and it's not yet final investment decisions. So we did a bit of our own analysis at IRENA, and that's the next slide. And we looked especially at the large projects and recent announcements. So we used that IEA database, but also other recent announcements. And we found 27 large projects, again, dominated by these green hydrogen projects, renewable power and electrolysis. And what jumps out is that out of these 27 projects, 18 explicitly mention the production of ammonia. So ammonia is really seen as the key hydrogen carrying vector going forward for these first projects. There are also some other commodities. There are two methanol projects. There's one project for sustainable aviation fuels, but it's really ammonia that dominates. And these 27 projects alone would add up to around 12.5 million tons of hydrogen per year once fully developed. So that is a very substantial amount. For example, if you compare that to the 10 million tons of hydrogen Europe is aiming for to import by 2030. And it's complex projects, because if you have these green hydrogen projects or green ammonia projects, you need renewable power, you need electrolyzer, you need ammonia synthesis, and 1 million ton of hydrogen per year equals around 10 gigawatts of electrolyzer capacity, equals around 20 gigawatts of renewable power. So if we're talking more than 10 million tons of hydrogen, we're talking 100 gigawatts of electrolyzers, we're talking 200 gigawatts of renewable power. And we're talking an investment in the order of $600 billion. So massive investments are planned going forward. And if you look the parties involved, of course, the gas companies, electrolyzer companies, equipment suppliers, project developers, but it's especially also the utilities and national oil companies that are engaged in this development. So if you move to the next slide, there's one more data set I wanted to share, and this is developed by the Desertec initiative. So their latest database contains 60 projects in the region, and this includes large and small scale projects, with 85% of the projects geared towards production of green hydrogen. And you see also that some of the countries which I have not mentioned before start to look into these opportunities. But again, it's UAE, Egypt, and Oman that jump out as key areas of where projects are being developed. So very interesting development. Next one, please. So how does all of this now fit into the international development context for hydrogen? Here you see some rollout numbers, again taken from the Hydrogen Council. So they foresee around 60-70 million tons of clean and green hydrogen by 2030. And you see in this slide the role of different regions in its development. You see that the Hydrogen Council has a lot of blue projects in the Middle East. But as said, I mean, if you look at the project database, you see a somewhat different picture with a lot of green projects also in the MENA region. So it would be interesting to discuss a little bit how that will go forward. And the amounts are roughly, overall amounts are roughly aligned with what I showed you from these different project databases. So in the order of 10-20 million tons by 2030. Next one, please. So the next question is then, what exactly will be traded? As I said, our analysis at IRENA suggests half of the trade will be international shipping, half will be pipelines. And for pipelines, of course, you can transport hydrogen gas, but for the shipping, there are other options. And I already mentioned ammonia as a key commodity that can be shipped at relatively low cost. So long term, we think shipping a kilo of liquid hydrogen will cost at least $1.50 a kilo, or $1,500 per ton. Shipping that same hydrogen in the form of ammonia costs probably $300 per ton of hydrogen. So it's only a fifth of what it would cost as liquid hydrogen, and that's a main driver to look at ammonia as a hydrogen carrier. Of course, there are additional costs because you need to produce this ammonia, but especially where you can use the ammonia directly. You don't need to reconvert it into hydrogen. That makes sense, and that's also what you see then happening with all these ammonia projects being developed. But apart from ammonia, it warrants to look also in other types of hydrogen-based commodities. We think that there is a key opportunity also for especially hot briquetted iron, for methanol, and for synthetic kerosene, so sustainable aviation fuels. And in this graph, I show you some of the numbers again taken from the Hydrogen Council, and we at IRENA have roughly a similar numbers how this will develop going forward. Next one, please. So ammonia is really critical for the coming years. We issued an renewable ammonia innovation outlook to go together with the Ammonia Energy Association. You can find it on our website. That was done in March or April this year, and at the time we concluded that there would be around 15 million tons of commissioned green ammonia projects by 2030. The latest numbers I have seen are much higher, in the order of 60 to 80 million tons per year. So very rapid development in that area. And it's a number of markets that are being targeted. So of course, ammonia as nitrogen fertilizer, which is already in the order of 200 million tons per year today, but also ammonia as shipping fuel, ammonia perhaps even as a fuel and power generation, for example in Japan that's being considered, and ammonia as a hydrogen energy carrier. So a lot of interesting developments in this area, and that explains the attention for ammonia. Next one, please. So now to make this happen, today this ammonia, especially the renewable ammonia, is still a bit more expensive. For example, if you produce renewable ammonia, production cost at the moment at least $1,000 per ton of ammonia. That's in line with today's ammonia spot price, but long-term gray or blue ammonia production costs are probably closer to $350 or $400 per ton. So there is still a need to buy down these costs. And the question is, who will pay for that? So there is governments, and there's also industries that have said, look, we want especially these green products, and they're willing to pay for that. And I think we'll hear some examples later in this session. And that, of course, is an opportunity, but also governments can play a role in the financing, in the buying down of these initial projects. That is one of the recommendations of the breakthrough report that we developed together with the IEA and with the climate champions. And apart from these financing aspects, also the need for emission standards for this hydrogen and for the hydrogen products came out as a top priority. So there's also a lot of attention for that topic right now. And for example, we're just finalizing a report on that together with the Rocky Mountain Institute at this moment. On the financing side, also the development banks have woken up to that. And for example, the World Bank will soon launch its hydrogen for development partnership on this topic. Next one, please. So in conclusion, very strong developments of hydrogen in the region, especially in recent months, and a significant number of projects being developed, adding up to more than 10 million tons of hydrogen per year, with a strong focus on renewable ammonia projects, and that will require massive investments in terms of the physical capacity, 100 to 200 gigawatts electrolyzers, 200 to 400 gigawatts renewable power, and investment volume of $300 to $600 billion to realize all of this. So, and that even excludes all these further processing and the whole logistics infrastructure. So. There is going to be a strong competition, but the MENA region is very well placed to play a key role in this emerging hydrogen economy. And that concludes my opening remarks. Thank you very much.
Just one moment. Yes, thank you so much, Dolf, for the very informative sharing. IRENA has been a pioneer in global energy transition and as a policy champion. So I have one question for you before taking the field questions. Is that okay for you?
Please.
Yes. So the first question is regarding the supportive policies and the mechanisms. So from your experience, how can we initiate market and businesses for hydrogen in MENA? I took down some numbers from your presentation. Currently, there are over 600 hydrogen projects submitted globally, but in MENA, there are only 47 up to date. So how can we initiate market and business? In Europe, there are some very welcome initiatives such as the European Hydrogen Bank and other kind of high-level designs. So what are the regulatory cases in your mind? And do you think MENA has a chance to replicate that kind of cases?
Yeah, I mean, the 600 projects includes a wide range of projects from megawatt scale to gigawatt scale. And I would say a lot of the larger projects are in fact in the MENA region. So in millions of tons, I think the MENA region plays a much more important role. As I said in the beginning, the region is quite unique because there is players in the region which have the financial capability, which have the engineering capability to make these projects happen. In terms of regulatory frameworks, for example, there's an interesting development also in Germany, the H2 Global partnership, where they have a double auction. So an auction on the supply side and an auction on the demand side to create that supply security and the demand security that is needed to do these billions of dollar projects with a lifespan of decades. And that security is needed going forward.
Yes, and also I think we have 8 open questions in the Q&A box, but we can also accommodate 3, I believe. So the first question is from Mr. Stefan Tarkovacs. He said, Mr. Gielen, about green H2 trend, knowing that we are trying to save our climate and the life diversity, but don't you think that such a technology would be better if our own countries can produce renewable energies and green hydrogen on its own, rather than importing fuels from outside of the region? I think that underlines the battle between green and blue.
Yeah, there are a number of aspects to this. I mean, of course, there is an energy security aspect. At the same time, there is an economic aspect. So it's a question of do you want to do everything nationally, or do you want to buy in an international market where you can probably get lower prices? And the economics of energy, of course, is a key part of overall economic prosperity. I mean, you see it at the moment in Europe, for example. So I think you will see a mix of both.
Yes, I agree with Mr. Gielen. So green and blue, they are not opposing against each other. They are both here complementing each other for forming a cleaner energy future. So I think that answers your question. And the next one goes to Muhammad Ali Khan. Do you see space as being a challenge for such size projects from renewable electricity and hydrogen production in MENA. There are also some notes, some numbers from your presentation. You mentioned to achieve the target, we need 100 to 200 gigawatt of electrolysis capacity and also 200 to 400 gigawatts of renewable energy projects. If I remember it right, in Norman's latest national strategy, they are targeting 1 million tons of green hydrogen per year, and that would require 6 to 8 gigawatt of electrolysis capacity, and I think 20 to 40 gigawatt of renewable capacity. So for a country, that's huge.
Indeed. I mean, I showed you at the beginning a map. So we've done quite detailed space analysis and taking all constraints into account, we came to a potential in the MENA region alone of around 2,000 exajoule, which is the equivalent of roughly 4 times total primary energy demand worldwide at this moment. So the potential is indeed enormous. One of the constraints in the region you need to also take into account, I didn't mention that, is you need water, and you need quite pure water, so you need to integrate it with desalination to really make it happen.
Yes, thank you. And one last question from the audience. I think it's a very new, latest news. So the Netherlands is the first country to issue hydrogen guarantee of origin certificate. Can a pilot project be carried out with one of the MENA projects?
Well, I mean, that is a very new announcement from this week. So I think you have to talk to the Dutch, but so we looked into the standardization and certification. We identified more than 10 such standards worldwide. They're all inconsistent in terms of system boundaries, in terms of criteria. So we're working now with the countries and try to harmonize all of that to really develop, allow the development of a deep global market.
Yes, I think one last comment from your side would be your ideas or your comments for your remarks for the upcoming COP27, as Egypt is very active in preparing it, preparing their national strategies and preparing for providing the international dialogues. Also, as our next speaker will also be an Egyptian, what's your remarks?
Well, I think the developments in Egypt are very impressive.
أنا في seminar online.
Just one second, sorry.
So the developments in Egypt are indeed very impressive, and I think you will hear a number of very remarkable announcements around hydrogen at the time of COP.
Yes, thank you so much. And still we have 11 questions in the Q&A box. So I'd appreciate if you can spend a bit longer time here to, try to answer these questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And without further ado, next coming up is our second speaker of today, Mr. Seif Mustafa from the General Authority for Suez Canal Economic Zone. Mr. Seif, are you here with us?
Yes, I'm with you. Good morning or good afternoon, everybody.
Yes, have you opened your camera?
Yes, I'm opening it now, but I just thought that maybe closing the camera would be much more efficient in terms of connection in order to avoid any connection disruption.
No, I think you look great on stage, on screen right now. And
thank you very much, but it's okay. Hoping that the connection will not be interrupted.
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I will play the slides for you. Just one moment.
Okay.
Yes. Let me share my screen. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Would we go first for the next slide, please? In order to facilitate the development of the green hydrogen hub the government of Egypt has structured and assigned all relevant public stakeholders to deal with the green hydrogen producers into two segments. The first segment, we call it the upstream segment, and it's the sole responsibility of the Ministry of Electricity and Renewable Energy. Basically consists of the following: the renewable energy generation parks and its connectivity to the national grid. The second segment, we call it the mid-downstream segment, sole responsibility of the SC zone, and it consists of the following: the water desalination plant, the power substations, the industrial cluster that includes green hydrogen, green ammonia, and e-methanol production plants, the utility corridors, which is right of way from the industrial complex to the port, the storage tank farms located at the port, the liquid bulk terminal, which is going to handle the exports, bunkering jetty, green bunkering license. Next, please. We have identified the projects for the developers to be, when it comes to phasing, to be over two phases in the near future. Phase one, we call it the pilot phase, and it has an expected COD by 2026. And phase one with an expected COD by 2030. Up to date, and for the already signed MOUs, our estimated requirements of renewable energy starts by 12 gigawatt for the pilot phase, and it would go up to 50 gigawatt of renewable energy for phase one. Fresh water through water desalination plants that we are going to build, it would be producing 104,000 cubic meter a day, and for the pilot phase, and it would increase to all the way to 590,000 cubic meter a day for phase one. For the industrial land, we will start by 7 million square meter of industrial lands to be increased for phase one up to 22 million square meter. The utilities corridor, or we call it the shared facilities corridor, it would be from the industrial land all the way to the seaport, and it would link for, the link connection would be for 17 kilometers long. The storage tank farms inside the seaport, the Sokhna seaport, will be spanning over 270,000 square meter for the pilot phase, to be increased to 500,000 square meter for phase one. For the liquid bulk terminal handling, it would take 500 meters long for the pilot phase. As for the phase one, it's to be determined in a later stage. Next, please. The proposed location for the green fuel industrial cluster at Sokhna integrated zone will be spanning over a 20 million square meter located in the northern sector of the Sokhna industrial area. Now, it is important to say that the Sokhna area is around 210 million square meter of total land. Next, please. This is the master plan of the Sokhna seaport, and you could see the proposed tank farms for the green fuel will be located inside the seaport in the green zone that is assigned here. Next, please. Going forward, the action plan undertaken by the public stakeholders started by signing the MOUs and would end up by signing the definitive agreements next month during the COP27. And that includes the allocation of the industrial lands, the current general incentives that are granted by the SC zone, the green fuel bunkering license, tailoring a national strategy, investment incentives, and finally signing the definitive agreements during COP27. Next, please. Going forward, the action plan undertaken by the project's developers started by the MOUs and would end up by the commercial operation dates, the CODs, which is 2026 for the pilot phase and 2030 for the phase one. And this includes and covers the project technical design, the final investment decision, the agreements in COP27, the starting of the construction activities for both the pilot and the phase 1, and finally the COD. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Seif. This is a very solid presentation, a lot of details, a lot of concrete project layouts. So along Egypt's transformation towards the global green hub, Suez Canal plays a critical role. How would you perceive the role of hydrogen in Suez Canal's overall energy plan?
Within the SC zone, this is one of the targeted sectors and first priority sectors, and it is mainly for exporting the green hydrogen products, whether it's a green fuel or it's a green ammonia. Now, for the green fuel, we have a special focus because, you know, the Suez Canal has around 10% of the total worldwide trade, which is around 18,000 ships. So establishing the green bunkering fuel for ships would be quite essential, as well as very good for the decarbonization and the worldwide initiative for decarbonizing the transportation sector.
Certainly. And Suez Canal is, or I think, is one of the most important hubs in terms of global trade and distribution and energy fuel distribution routes. So clearly, exactly, you have a very, very important position. Regarding the timeline, regarding how to roll out these projects in a timely manner. So can you give us more specifics on that part?
The timeline started during the last year, late last year, through the MOUs, and we have assigned or designed the mechanism in order to have like a target date. So you sign first you sign the MOUs, you start the negotiation for the framework agreement, which will be signed by the COP20 or during the COP27 for the first group of developers who would have the pre-feasibility study as well as the final feasibility study, naming their definitive utilities requirements, and all those definite requirements would be on a minimum take or pay, because we will be building for example, the water desalination plants we are going to develop based on the requirements and the needs of the developers. So we needed to have a definitive agreement for the first group in order to prepare for the national grid, the green grid, and the utilities corridor, and all these works that needs to be in parallel with the production facilities, with the development of the production facilities.
Yes, thank you so much. And also there are a few field questions raised from the audience. So the first one, who are the key players involved in the MOU signed? I think for that questions, you can directly search for the names from Suez Canal's website. They are all there. But the question—
Yes, and therefore I would simply spread them. There are 4 public stakeholders: the National Authority for Renewable Energy, the Egyptian Company for Transmission, which is responsible for the management of the national grid, the SC zone, the Suez Canal Economic Zone, and the Sovereign Fund of Egypt. Those are the only stakeholders, public stakeholders, that represent the government of Egypt within the MOUs and the definite agreements as well.
Yes, and among all these MOU projects, when can we expect the first project taking off the ground?
Actually, the first project will be next month. Beside the COP27 activities, and it will be a very small project, but it will be operating by next month. It has a capacity of 100 megawatts of electrolyzer.
It's not small. It's certainly not a small
Relatively
project.
speaking, compared to the large developers who are going to have their projects starting by 2026 as a pilot phase, and then 2030 for the phase one.
Yes.
With all those gigawatts of capacities that we are expecting.
Yes. And one last question from the audience, Mr. Ahmad El-Batrawi, sorry about my pronunciation. So his question is, Mr. Seif, when the incentives is expected to be announced and how the current regulations will accommodate for the renewable power sourcing?
For the current incentives, you can search for them on our website. It's publicly broadcasted because it is related to all the industrial factories that are going to operate within the special economic zone, the Suez Canal economic zone. For the national strategy for investment incentives that is currently under study and in process, is going to be declared very soon as a national strategy, not only for the Suez Canal economic zone. But I am not in free or in total freedom to disclose this national strategy because it's still under process. But definitely it will be very suitable and very, you could say, like tailor-made and first of its kind of investment incentives to be targeting a certain or a specific sector, such as the green hydrogen projects sector. We have already classified and characterized the green hydrogen project as a national strategic sector.
Yes.
This was already declared.
It's crystal clear, and I think Mr. Ahmed would be very satisfied with the answer. Yes, and that concludes your presentation today. Once again, I would like to convey our best wishes to the COP27 upcoming in 2 weeks, and best wishes to the future success of Suez Canal.
Thank you very much, and we're looking forward for your coverage again for our efforts, and we are trying to develop a huge green hydrogen hub. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day, everybody.
Have a lovely day to you.
Thank
and
you.
Our last but not least solo speech from Dr. Celal of Turkey Energy, Nuclear and Mining Research Institute. Mr. Celal, are you here with us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, perfect. So without further ado, I would like to let you introduce yourself a little bit about Turkey and fire up a presentation.
Okay, can I share my screen first, please?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay, can you see it?
Not yet. Just one moment. Not yet.
Okay. What about right now? Actually,
Yes.
maybe you can share on your screen, and I can also tell you to go to next slide, because I think there is a problem.
It's okay. I will do that for you. Just one moment.
Yeah, if you can open the last one that I sent you, it's gonna be perfect.
I only have the first version, but I hope it will mind.
Okay, let me try one more time to share my screen, please.
Yes. Okay. Share your screen. You drive the slides,
Yeah.
or I will do it for you. Okay.
Okay.
That'll be...
I shared my screen right now.
Yes, I can see it. And may you kindly put it in full screen mode?
Okay. What about right now? Is it good?
It's perfect.
Okay, that's wonderful. So this is Celal Erbay from Turkey. As you know, the name of Turkey is changed as Turkey. So that's why all the documents we use Türkiye and not Turkey anymore. I am working for Turkish Energy Nuclear and Mineral Research Agency, and I am the head of Energy and Technology Policies Department. Quickly, I'm gonna tell you about what is TENMAK. TENMAK is the short name of the company. And TEMAN, it is the research institute that we do all R&D activities about hydrogen. And later on, I'm gonna give you a more detailed information about our energy outlook and also our energy policies, because we are also planning to publish our hydrogen technology strategy probably next month. Currently, we concluded. It is also, I mean, under my coordinatorship, we prepared this report here. And hopefully, after our minister approved, we will publish it. I am gonna just mention about TENMAK very briefly. TENMAK is founded in 2020 in the field of energy, clean energy, especially mining, ionization, radiation, particle accelerators, and nuclear technology, under Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources with the special budget. And there are two main activities of TENMAK. The first one is doing research under institutes that we have 5. You can see on the right screen. The second mission is the funding researchers, universities and private sector if they want to do R&D about energy and especially clean energy. So currently we have 850 researchers in the company, and they are mainly work in the institutes, which are nuclear energy, boron, rare earth elements. As you know, it's also very critical in the hydrogen production or storage, and also plus CO2. And other one is the Energy Research Institute and the Clean Energy Research Institute that we mainly do our hydrogen research here. We are also part of member of CERN, CESEMENT, Atomic Energy Agency International. And mostly we do R&D activities. We cooperate and coordinate with public and private sectors. As I said, we have 5 different institutes and which are carried out studies about nuclear, boron, rare earth elements, clean energy and energy. And hydrogen studies, we work on the Clean Energy Research Institute. Here, we meet the R&D needs of our country in the field of energy efficiency, which is also very important for us. And we are responsible for conducting, monitoring, coordinating, and contributing scientific research. Frankly, I can tell you that here we mostly focus on TRL 4 to 7. And we also have a budget to low-level TRL, but we would like to focus on a high number of TRLs that we also focus on to produce or focus on the products here. Also, we have a collaboration with public institutions in Turkey, and also in EU, and also organizations and universities. Under Clean Energy Institute, we have Hydrogen Technologies Laboratory, and here we have a lot of different subjects that we are working on. And also we have PEM electrolyzer, which is kind of 150 kilowatt. We use it for R&D activities. Also, we have fuel cell test infrastructure, and also we do analytical measurements here. But currently, this is, we believe, not enough for us, for Turkey. So that's why we would like to scale up. Currently, it is under construction. We are building 12,000 square meters of closed area for Clean Energy Institute. And it's gonna be a very complex building, and it's gonna work with all universities and research institutes in Turkey very closely on especially hydrogen. And there are gonna be 4 main labs here: hydrogen, wind energy, solar, and also we are gonna have another lab which is CCUS technologies. We have some social responsibilities. That's why we support international efficiency challenge electric vehicle races. It was in summer in Turkey. We also supported the cars. They work with hydrogen, and also since 2005, we have a vehicle that will compete in the hydrogen category of the International Efficiency Challenge. And as I said, we support university students and high school students for their R&D activities, and we fund them on this kind of based on the social responsibilities. Okay, this is Turkey energy outlook that I would like to give more detail. Sorry about that. Our national energy and mining policy is based on 3 pillars that are increasing the share of renewables, foreseeable markets, and supply security. So energy demanding in Turkey is doubled in the last 2 decades, and shares of electricity production has also increased over the last 20 years. And Turkey is well above the world average in electricity generation from renewable resources at a rate of around 46%, as the share of renewable resources in global electricity production, which is around 28%. Also, we announced our 11th development plans I believe, in 2018, which is between 2019 and 2023. We targeted to reach 30% of our electricity production will be from renewables. That we got it. Also, at least 33% of the production is gonna be domestic and renewables. We also invest in our technology, and currently we can produce. I said 33, but it's around between 60 and 65%. Currently, we can. After we invest on technology, currently we reach the 65% that we are not dependent on other countries or other companies outside of Turkey. So before the Paris Agreement, we announced that we are gonna have 16 gigawatt wind energy by 2030 and 10 gigawatt solar energy by 2030. But after the agreement, we are currently updating these numbers, and we are targeting more. I hope next year, in the beginning of next year, we are gonna announce these numbers. So here, as you can see, the installed capacity over the years, and in the beginning, around 2000, we highly dependent of thermic centrals that work with the coal. And later on, if you can see 2022, okay, we still use thermic centrals to generate electricity. But as you can see, we currently also produce electricity from hydro power, and we have a production from solar, wind, and biomass. So currently, 53% of total installed capacity is from renewables by the end of September 2022, and 47% is dependent of the thermic centrals. So here you can see that Turkey aims to become Europe's new wind generation and innovation center. And the country is placed in wind energy as Europe's 5th largest wind equipment manufacturer and the European leader in blade and tower production. And Turkey exported approximately $1.5 billion of wind turbines and equipment nearly 50 countries in 2021. and added that 70–80% of the turnover of our companies consists of export revenues. Turkey also can locally manufacture about, as I said, 70% of its wind turbines and related components, which is also very critical for us. After a lot of investment on technology, currently we can manufacture in Turkey. Also, we ranked 5th in Europe and 12th in the world in renewable energy installed capacity, and 7th in Europe and 12th in the world in wind energy installed power. Turkey is well above the world average in electricity generation from renewable resources at a rate of around 46%, as the share of renewable resources in global electricity production, which is around 28%, as I said. Based on very recent study, World Bank, they did this study with 12 gigawatts of offshore power plants and also 57 gigawatts of offshore potential. The country, Turkey, aims to increase developments in turbine technology. Taking developing technologies, a growing economy, and increasing population into account, Turkey has the potential to have an installed onshore capacity of over 100,000 megawatts, while offering attractive opportunities for investors in wind and the renewable sectors. I am saying that because, as you know, to produce green energy, green hydrogen, we have to increase the capacity of wind and solar. And also Turkey is Europe's biggest solar panel manufacturer and the 4th in the world. Turkey more than tripled its electricity generation capacity since 2002 to more than 100 gigawatts. And the share of renewable sources jumped from 54% from 38%. Solar power had the biggest leap for us since 2014, from just 40 megawatt to more than 8 gigawatts currently. Turkey aims to become one of the 3 top producers of solar panels in the world next years with additional investments. According to the Ministry of Energy, the current annual capacity is around 7.9 gigawatts, behind of China, which are around 124 gigawatts, and Vietnam and South Korea, and we are the 4th after that. Also, there are solar company, it's kind of very large company, Karim Holding. Recently, they said it has installed 628 megawatts in its Karapınar solar power plant in the Konya province. It is south side of Turkey, and total nameplate is around, it's gonna plan to reach around 1.35 gigawatts by the end of this year. And it translates to 1 gigawatts in alternating current, which is very enormous, and it's gonna be kind of one of the biggest facility in the world. So hydrogen, it is very, not very new, but for the technology, it is kind of very new also in Turkey. So as I said before, we are gonna publish our strategy plan, hopefully next year or in December latest. So Turkey is currently finalizing this roadmap. So I can tell the audience a little bit about what we focus on in our report, in our strategy. And I can tell you that what is our, because, you know, every country, they are currently try to reach carbon net zero by 2050. Also, we have the same targets. So to reach this target, we have to also invest in hydrogen. So that's why after this strategy report, it's gonna be very common, and it is gonna be kind of very hot topic in Turkey, I believe that. So one of the steps to be taken to achieve climate neutrality is to focus on R&D activities, because as I said, in the wind, technologies we invested, and currently 60% we can manufacture in Turkey. So we would like to do the same thing in the hydrogen technologies, and in maybe 2035 we would like to get at least 50% of the technology is going to be manufactured in Turkey. So also we would like to cooperate with the other countries that we, in the beginning of this month, we signed the agreement, kind of MOU with Germany. So we would like to also do some technology transfer from this kind of countries, because as you know, they are kind of developed countries, and it's gonna be faster to reach this kind of high technology as soon as possible for us. Also, with reducing the dependence of green hydrogen on energy imports, exporting the hydrogen produced using domestic technology, resources, and opportunities to the world, especially the European markets, are our first priority. In this way, Turkey will provide green hydrogen, not only for its own needs, we are gonna also provide all world. And also, as you know, currently we don't have a pipeline that works only for hydrogen, but we can mix it, or we can inject the hydrogen to our current existing natural gas lines until 20%. We also do some research about it, and currently we successfully tested 20%, and it works very well. And we also consider to inject this hydrogen to our gas lines. And also, as you know, Turkey is heavily dependent on fossil fuels. We import the energy from other countries, and based on this, even based on this, we tripled our renewable energy, renewable electricity generation in the last 2 decades. I mean, thanks to improvement in the technology, and also, but you know, Turkey have a great potential in the solar and the wind. We would like to see that easily. Also, Turkey has a great potential in the hydrogen production. So in this year, I can see that many big companies and large companies all around the world, they have a lot of interest to do this kind of investment in Turkey because of the great potential of the renewables. We believe that. Also, you know, it is gonna be low cost energy production, electricity production based on our solar and the electric wind. We think that we have great potential. We also large amount of boron in our country, which is also good to store hydrogen. We are also investing, or we are also doing some R&D activities based on hydrogen storage by using boron. I can tell you that also green hydrogen is widely used in refinery and ammonia, fertilizer, glass industry, etc. Also in our country, we are gonna invest these companies, these sectors, that also they are gonna start using green hydrogen as soon as possible. Actually, I mean, these are our targets, but currently there are also numbers, exact numbers that shows our targets by 2030 and 2050. But before publishing the report, I don't want to share these numbers, but I can tell you that these numbers is kind of very close to Europe's targets and kind of their average. So probably after it is approved by the minister, then you can also see these numbers on the report exactly. So as I said, currently we are gonna invest on the hydrogen, but we are gonna also invest carbon dioxide capturing, utilization, and storage technologies. Currently, we are also working on this roadmap, and next year we are planning to publish this. And also solar technologies are very critical for us. Currently I am working on the new roadmap for solar technologies too. And altogether with hydrogen, carbon, CCUS, solar and wind, I hope we are gonna be in a good position by 2030, and 2050. I hope we are gonna reach our carbon net zero targets. So we have great potential to be global green hydrogen hub based on our potential in the solar and wind. And currently our report is gonna be published at the end of this year, by the end of this year. And 3 pillars of hydrogen ecosystem, we believe that they are research and development, commercialization and large-scale adoption and deployment. And also, as I said, abundant renewable energy potential and low cost of renewable energy sources, which are our advantage, great advantage. And EU is the largest market for us, and we can sell them the green hydrogen and green ammonia. And also in future, if we can have a pipeline that works with 100% hydrogen, it's gonna be easier to supply them to Europe. And also, as you know, the geopolitical position is a great advantage for us. And also, as I said, we are currently working on other strategy reports that we are planning to publish hopefully next year. Thank you so much. As I know, there are questions that we cannot answer because of the time, but this is my email. So you can send me a question that I can reply you later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Celal. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me and
Yeah,
see me now?
I can hear you.
Yes, first of all, congratulations on the ambitious target of Turkey. I think we all believe it's a rising star and perhaps one of the brightest stars in the region in upcoming years. There are several questions in the Q&A box. If I may, I would like to read them and for you to address them.
Sure.
Yes, so the first question is from Paul Barron. So first, he congratulated you for doing such a great presentation. And he is also delighted to see that solar and green hydrogen is taking off in Turkey over the next few years. So is it likely to be a bigger part? Is hydrogen likely to be a bigger part of the energy solution in the Turkey's future energy, especially from solar?
As I said, I mean, there are very big company in Turkey. It is kind of Gielen. Currently, they are increasing their capacity, and I believe based on this technology, solar technology, we are also planning to produce hydrogen. But I cannot tell you that the hydrogen is not gonna be like 20% or 30% of our energy resources. Hopefully by 2050, if we can reach, I can tell you that around maybe 15%, 20%, this is gonna be probably enough for Turkey. Because as I said, our target is to increase the capacity in solar and wind. And if we, by using them, we would like to increase the hydrogen capacity from 0. But I believe 15% is going to be quite enough for Turkey.
Yes, and another key factor to commercialization would be the cost. How would you predict the LCOH cost in Turkey, especially in the near term, and maybe by 2030?
Okay.
I would like to
frankly, I would like to answer this question, but this answer is in the report. So before it is published, I mean, if I skip this question, would you mind? Because we put these numbers in the reports, and after the approval, it is gonna be best to see in this report. But I can tell you that currently, based on international reports, the cost of hydrogen in Turkey, which is, if I remember correctly, between 2.4 per kilogram to $2.8 per kilogram. But our targets is gonna be less by 2030 and 2050. I can just tell you that. It's gonna be below these numbers.
Yes. And how will hydrogen be priced as the market develops? Will it be similar to LNG contracts, cost plus, etc.?
Oh, this is a very good question. Very, very good question. Frankly, the cost we can maybe estimate, but the price of the hydrogen, I believe that it is currently not very easy to estimate. Because in future, if you would like to reach your carbon zero targets, that you need hydrogen. So, I mean, currently I talk with the companies in Turkey, even they cannot tell how much it is gonna be exactly. So I don't know, maybe it is gonna be $5 per kilogram, maybe $10 per kilogram, I have no idea. But it is gonna be very precious.
Yes, and I think I will just leave the floor for you to discuss it. After the session, I think it will require several emails correspondence to explain the situation and how the trends will go.
Sure.
Yes, and again, I thank you so much, Dr. Celal, for joining us and for contributing such an informative presentation. I believe during the COP27 and after the COP27, there will be more exciting news from Turkey.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yes, and now we are approaching our final but very important executive panel, fast-tracking clean hydrogen investment and the scaling up in MENA. First of all, if I may, I would like to invite our distinguished panelists on stage. May you kindly open up your camera and audio system. Yes, first of all, as you can see, we have 3 panelists here. There's one missing. It will be our moderator. So Mr. Ravi Suri, Senior Managing Director from AP Mola Capital, he is still stuck on road and suffered from internet issue because he is away in island nation right now. So if I may, I will step in for him for this moment to ask our panelists to briefly introduce themselves and how their role relates to hydrogen investment, development, and scaling up in MENA. I think the first one goes to Dinesh, if I may.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm remotely connected from UK office. I work with Saudi Aramco, and at this stage, I'm leading one of the world's largest carbon capture project, drive the energy transitions 2 ways, one through blue path, one through green path. So I'm with Aramco from the last 9 years, and my expertise, our area of expertise is basically energy transitions and a new energy target, and how to invest money properly, like looking for a long-term investment planning. That's where I am. I'm a chemical engineer and MBA from Melbourne Business School, having alumni of Kellogg School of Management. And that's my brief career study. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dinesh. We welcome you here. And next, I think it will go to Mr. Karim Badr. I will let you to introduce yourself briefly.
Thank you, Molly, and thank you for having me today. So I'm Karim Badr. I'm the CEO of the Infrastructure and Utilities Sub-Fund at the Sovereign Fund of Egypt. I have more than 20 years experience in private equity, project development and finance, and infrastructure investments in general. I look after a number of sectors within the sovereign funds, specifically conventional power, renewable energy, water treatment, digital infra, and transport and logistics. I basically, when it comes to green hydrogen, I'm leading the initiative from the sovereign fund's perspective. As you know, Egypt is encompassing on a ambitious program, and I'm coordinating the sovereigns from the sovereign side, along with my colleagues from the Ministry of Electricity and the Suez Canal Economic Zone, and it's a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Sorry, Karim, we lost you.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. We lost your last sentence.
So I was saying that I'm coordinating Egypt's green hydrogen program from the sovereign fund side, and I'm working closely with the Ministry of Electricity and the SC zone to deliver this project.
Perfect. And last but not least, let's welcome Mr. Vivek Singla. Can you briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vivek Singla. I've been in the power sector, energy sector in the country in India for last more than 3 decades. And my company, Renew Power, is relatively young company. It's 11-year-old, but it has the laurel of being the largest renewable power company in the country, with a total portfolio of 13 gigawatt in solar and wind. And now we have set our eyes on green hydrogen and green ammonia, and that's what we have been looking for, opportunities within the country and abroad. We have covered quite a ground as far as development of some of the projects is concerned, which we'll be talking about the issues that we have been facing in developing of these projects and taking it further during the course of our discussions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And I would like to once again draw everyone's attention that we have a very diverse panel this time. We have Dinesh representing the MENA developers, one of the most renowned MENA developers, and we have Karim representing the public side of support for green hydrogen or hydrogen in general, and also we have Vivek from the international perspective, introducing perhaps how to commercialize at competitive cost of these hydrogen projects in MENA. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type down in the Q&A question box, and we will try to accommodate as many as possible. If I may, to kick off the conversation, I would like to direct the question to Karim, because Egypt COP27 is right ahead of us, and public support has long been considered as one of the most important factor to kickstart an industry. So how's the fund's attitude toward green hydrogen, and what's your upcoming plan?
No, thank you, Molly. You're spot on. I think the development of this new sector, being the green hydrogen, is still at its very early days, and it will only see the light from the collective efforts of both the private and public side. I think from the public sector side, although we at the Sovereign Fund of Egypt, we like to look ourselves as a quasi-governmental entity and are ultimately a co-investor in our core, but we do understand for greenfield projects, specifically in new industries like the green hydrogen, will need a lot of support at the beginning. We need a lot of lobbying, and we're more than happy to play the role of a catalyst, of a coordinator on the government side until these projects see the light, and then we eventually become a co-investor alongside the private sector in them. If I can say.
Hi, Shadi. I'm in some meeting, so I'm just joining you. How are you today?
Mr. Dinesh, do you mind putting yourself on mute?
Our reading is nice, better.
Yes, we will try to mute Dinesh at this point. Just give me one moment. Can you help?
Sorry, I got cut in between. Yeah.
No worries. Yes, Karim, please go ahead. Sorry about that.
No worries. So as I was saying, we believe that there are a number of elements that the collective effort of the government needs to address, so that these green hydrogen programs and projects see the light. So on Egypt's side, what we wanted to do is twofold. We wanted to position Egypt as a green hydrogen hub not just for the production of green hydrogen, but also for downstream elements such as green ammonia and e-methanol, and really capitalize on Egypt's strategic elements that make it the right, one of the right countries for being such a hub. So we have the infrastructure when it comes to ports, land availability, grid network, and so forth. We have the right resources when it comes to wind sources and solar resources. We also have the right proximity to Europe and the geographical location that allows us to become an export hub to Europe. And then finally, we have the geopolitical stability that attracts global developers that either have been doing business in Egypt for quite some time, or as new entrants come into play that give them the comfort that they can come and do business here in Egypt. So I think from that perspective, the government took the decision that it will open its arms for international investors. On that sense, since the beginning of this year and in anticipation of COP27, we have been in direct discussions with a number of developers to go ahead and start doing their initial studies when it comes to developing green hydrogen or green ammonia or e-methanol projects here in Egypt, primarily for export purposes. On top of that, we as a government have hired a set of consultants to develop Egypt's green hydrogen strategy, and this primarily will address how can Egypt maximize and benefit from the hydrogen and the ammonia that will be produced here in Egypt. And the idea will be primarily to either use it for downstream purposes such as green steel, green aluminum, power generation, or long-haul transportation. But additionally, also, it will solidify Egypt's position when it comes to the Suez Canal Authority by becoming a green hub or a green point along the shipping routes, making use of green bunkering facilities alongside the Suez Canal. So I think from that perspective, the government is working on a number of elements to make sure that these projects see the light. Fundamentally, we're competing against other countries in the region, so we also understand that we have to have the right set of incentives, the right set of fiscal policies that gives these existing developers or new developers the comfort that Egypt is competitive vis-a-vis its neighbors in the region. Of course, we are not competing with the US and the Inflation Reduction Act that is giving substantial subsidies for production within the US, but we're definitely very competitive vis-a-vis neighboring countries, as I said, and this enables us to really look around us and learn from what's going around us geopolitically, and understand that, for example, there is pressure on supply chain, there is pressure on availability of commodities and inflation, and then at the same time there is also a hyped up demand when it comes to green ammonia and green hydrogen in light of the energy crisis in Europe and the announcements that the EU has made in relation to Repower EU by 2030. So all of that is on our mind, and we are making good progress to really solidify some of these projects that have been announced over the last few months to take an important milestone during COP27, and hopefully we make some announcements in Sharm el-Sheikh when I hope I see most of you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Karim. Egypt certainly has great prospects, but when it comes to our theme, fast-tracking clean hydrogen investment and scaling up in MENA, it all ends up around capital and funding. You used the case Europe. You use Europe as a case study. In Europe, recent days they have numerous incentives and the funding mechanism to kickstart the industry, like the European Hydrogen Fund, like the European Hydrogen Bank, and several innovative funds to facilitate technology and the production development. Can we expect similar mechanisms happening in Egypt? And is there any ongoing plans within the fund already?
So we at the Sovereign Fund of Egypt, we believe that we are just not a partner, right? We're also a long-term partner. So we are going to hold at least 15% of the equity in most of these projects that we're talking about. This will give us, you know, a skin in the game. We'll make sure that we deliver not just on setting the right environment, but also in being a long-term a partner to these developers. On top of that, we're also looking at not just investing on the generation side, but also on you know, transfer of technology and localizing of industry, because we believe that as we position ourselves as a hub, and as there is pressure on supply chain, as we can see globally, you know, we want to attract also manufacturers. We also want to attract suppliers of different components to come and set up shop here. I think this is the short-term target, but I think going forward, you know, Egypt is not really one of the, you know, the most rich countries when it comes to surplus funds and so forth. And accordingly, I'm not sure we can follow suit, you know, the kind of incentives that or the kind of funding that Europe and the US are providing. But I think what we want to look at ourselves as the other side of the equation. We want to look at the supply side, and we want to make the environment the most competitive and the most receptive, to make sure that we become an export hub to these developers to Europe, who can then benefit from some of the funding sources that you have mentioned in order to close the financing package for the different projects.
Yes, and one last question before I switch to Vivek. You just mentioned that the fund will invest 50% of equity in projects.
No, 15.
15, yes, 15. That's what I mentioned. So, what's your evaluation criteria for suitable projects? Any preferred types or any preferred technology? What's the priorities?
Look, the priorities are to have credible, real projects. Look, we've signed to date 15 MOUs or so. We're hopeful that we're going to sign a handful of framework agreements by COP27. But at the end of the day, our ultimate goal is to see a few of these projects coming across the line, reaching financial close, and then reaching the commercial operation. I think our criteria is to make sure that we have credible partners, was to have IRRs that are attractive, but at the same time, we understand that at this early stage, this is not an IRR game. This is a development game. This is a world-changing economics and a very new set of fuels for the future that are environmentally friendly, that are, you know, taking energy transition into real new heights. And given that this is a COP of implementation, we're hoping to showcase that Egypt is walking the walk, right? So it is important that we do not set economics as the top of priorities in the short run. However, the criteria will definitely be you know, banking on and making sure that we have the right partners, whether on the development side, on the supply side, on the construction side, and even on the financing side, that can take these projects forward. And this is really what we're looking at. We're scrutinizing a lot of the information that is being supplied to us, but we're also aware that currently there is no you know, price for ammonia globally. There's no market for e-methanol or green ammonia globally that allows us to really predict the next 25 years and what's going to happen there. So a lot of these things are still up for discussion over the next few months until we reach financial close.
Yes, thank you. I'll come back to you later. And now let me invite Mr. Vivek on stage. Speaking of critical partners, renewable power is one of them. You are among the several MOUs signed by Egypt these days. So why choose Egypt as your first stop into the MENA market? Vivek?
Yeah. So, Molly, I think we have been looking at various geographies for our interest in green hydrogen and green ammonia projects. And we have been doing our due diligence and have carried out feasibility studies at quite a few of the locations, including 3 locations outside India and 3 locations within India. So Egypt happens to be one of them. And yes, we are privileged enough to be one of the parties who have signed an MOU with the government of Egypt. And we have already carried out our feasibility studies at Egypt also. We have already identified the parcel of land at Egypt and are going ahead with the discussions with government of Egypt, like various other partners, for going to the next step of signing the farm agreement, binding agreements. And we are hopeful that before COP27, we'll be able to finalize our deal with the Egypt. And why Egypt? I think the choices are very clear. The favorable government policies from the Egypt in attracting the people to their country in investing and establishing the green hydrogen and green ammonia projects, making that kind of investment. Favorable natural resources in terms of wind and solar. Large land parcels identified by the government, upfront allocating it to them, to the select parties who are going ahead with the projects. These are some of the definite criteria, and low tax regime. Definitely some of the criteria that have attracted us to Egypt. Their proximity to Europe is another one, because prima facie, initially most of these products, this green ammonia that the developers will be making will be meant for exports, and Europe seems to be one of the largest market as far as consumption of green ammonia over the next 8 to 10 years is concerned. As Europe has already defined that they will be going in for, they are targeting 20 million tons of green hydrogen and its derivatives by 2030, and out of that 10 million tons will be imported. So that makes something around equivalent of 50 million tons of green ammonia import by 2030, makes it a large enough market, and the proximity from Egypt to Europe definitely adds another feather to the cap of Egypt in making it a low-cost ammonia producers, because the transportation cost also will play a part, and that also seems to be reasonable when we are talking about Egypt for exporting to Europe.
Yes, and they are all the sweet part of a new market. What about the challenges that may keep you awake at night when entering into Egypt or Morocco or other MENA markets or other new markets? So what do you see are the challenges right now in pushing forward the permitting, the bankability, the investment side of the projects?
So as far as the challenges on this green hydrogen project is concerned, the biggest challenge I see not on the development side, but obviously there are challenges, I'll come to that, but on the demand side. The various governments in the world have come up with some incentives on the supply side, but clarity on that is required. Like on IRA, everybody is excited about it, everybody is going through it, everybody is confused about it, people are waiting for the fine prints of IRA to come up, and depending on that, the next stage of development in various in the world for these green hydrogen projects will be happening, because the kind of incentive that IRA is offering is mind-boggling, and that can change the complete outcome of where these projects will be established ultimately, at least in the short run. Apart from that, on the demand side, none of the country has categorically come, although they have been talking about it. I'm sure that they'll be coming up in the near future, and without that, I don't think the countries can survive. But how to create the demand? The hydrogen purchase obligations, carbon cess, all these things have been talked about, and one country or two countries have come up with the carbon cess, but other countries still have to come up with creating the demand in the form of hydrogen purchase obligations, ammonia purchase obligations, green ammonia purchase obligations, and the carbon cess that has to be imposed on uses of gray hydrogen and gray ammonia, because ultimately it's the demand side that's going to derive all these projects, financial closure of all these projects. And if the demand is not coming forth, if the government is not coming forth, everybody is talking about these projects. They will keep talking. The developers will be talking about development of the projects. Off-takers will be talking about signing the MOU for off-take of the projects. But ultimately, binding contracts will be a distant away till this kind of demand creation is there. On the development side, yes, when we select the countries, there are a lot of due diligence points, the political risk, the political climate, the economical risk, the taxation policies of the country, the stability in the country, land parcels, natural resources, proximity to the markets. All these factors are considered before we consider any one site. And in that respect, there are quite a few geographies in the world which are endowed with good natural resources. And MENA region completely, most of the countries in the MENA region are endowed with that natural resources and the proximity to the market. And that makes it attractive for the countries to look at those markets, definitely.
Yes, but that's again a chicken and egg questions. Regarding demand, we see Japan opens the hydrogen application at its all form. In terms of power sector, mobility sector, building sector, industry sector, they are open to apply hydrogen, green hydrogen or green ammonia in all social activities. But the question is, the cost is too high. Japanese are expecting maybe 50 to 60% of cost down to get the application in place. So which sector, the demand side, supply side, or transport sector, which part should be moving first? Well, what's your solution for that, or what's your advice for that?
So Molly, our perception is, our thought process on that is very clear, that it's going to be first the industry sector, the feedstock hydrogen and its derivatives where they are being used, that will be the first to pick up. And in that vein, like it will start with, say, fertilizers, who are using ammonia to a great extent, refineries, or using hydrogen, and then in the line will be the shipping industries. And if we just talk about these three industries, the total demand of green ammonia for fertilizer industry is close to 200 million tons in the world, out of which 20 million tons is still being traded. So the infrastructure for transportation, for shipping, port development, and everything, etc., already exists in the world. This will be the easiest to replace one, and therefore so many developers are talking about ammonia in the first thing. Second thing is refineries, like they're already using the hydrogen. So it makes a lot of sense to establish green hydrogen projects next to the refineries, which can replace the gray hydrogen. Third, the shipping industries have been talking about that they have already found the solutions of running their ships on green ammonia and green methanol. They are the third in the line. And put together, this demand is so huge that it requires quite a few $1 trillion of investment in the world, which is good enough for the world to go ahead. Regarding other applications, like in transportation, in power generation, gas blending, LNG blending, and the oil replacement, etc., all these are very, very, very real, and they are going to come. But it's going to take some time for the world to establish the infrastructure to deal with the problems of storage, transportation, and dispensation of hydrogen, and then they will come up. In the meanwhile, green ammonia and green methanol can, I think, steal the show in the near future over the next 5 to 8 years.
Yes. So what's Renew's strategy? Starting from maybe a Hydrogen Valley project or on-site production projects, then scaling up, then make the supply chain works and go for the demand? Is that the route we are thinking about?
Yeah, so that's exactly what we have been thinking about. We have a two-pronged strategy, one for the Indian market, our domestic market, for which we have already entered into a joint venture with the largest engineering company and the largest oil company in the country, which will cater to the requirement of refineries and the fertilizer plants in the country. Second is the export oriented, for which we are mainly focusing on green ammonia projects to be established near the ports in some of the geographies which are endowed with good natural resources, and export this liquid green ammonia or green methanol to various parts of the world.
Yes, you are perfectly correct. And Renew Power is an India origin company, and India and MENA are being compared very often these days because they are both targeting to produce the most cost competitive, or we say the cheapest green hydrogen in the world. So being an Indian company or still a global company investing in MENA, so how would you compare these two markets from your perspective?
So MENA is definitely endowed with a slightly better natural resources than India, and that puts India to a slight disadvantage as compared to MENA. And therefore, we have been looking at MENA geographies and other geographies also in the world very, very closely. But at the same time, Indian government has been very, very optimistic about green hydrogen and its derivatives. And they've already, Prime Minister Modi has already declared it's his vision of making India an export hub for green hydrogen and its derivatives projects. In that direction, India has come up with two very significant benefits. One is the waiver of central transmission charges. What does that mean? That means I can establish my renewable energy projects in the part of the country which are endowed with the better renewable resources, and at the same time I can establish my process plants of green hydrogen and green ammonia near to the port, which makes it easy for me to transport it to other parts of the world. And the transmission charges for renewable electricity that I generate in one state and transport to another state have already been waived off by the government. That means the government will socialize it and other consumers will be bearing it. I will not have to, the developers of the green hydrogen and ammonia will not have to bear it. Second, very important point, India is a unique country which has a unified integrated grid of more than 210 gigawatt. And traditionally, this grid has been surplus during the night time. Therefore, the government of India has offered a banking policy, energy banking policy. That means if I need 100 million units of electrons to supply to my electrolyzer and green ammonia plant, I'll generate 100 million unit of equivalent of renewable energy, out of which maybe 50 million units or 50 million units I will be consuming during the time when the renewable energy is being generated. And that's 50 to 60 million units I will supply to the grid, which will be used to replace the thermal power, which otherwise would have been generated during those hours. And during the night time, during the non-renewable hour times, I'll withdraw it from the grid. So with that, what does that mean? That each and every electron that I'm using for producing green hydrogen or green ammonia is coming from the renewable power. That's it's a green electron. And my electrolyzer utilization in that case will be close to 100%, whereas in any other part of the world, it will be closer to 50 to 60%. That reduces my capex on electrolyzer to a great extent, and I'll be able to compete in the world. Apart from that, we have been asking for certain other incentives from the government of India, which can make it a very attractive proposition for establishing the green hydrogen projects within India. And therefore, I've been looking at all the geographies, starting with Chile, US, MENA region, India, and Australia for establishing my projects. And I'm open to start my first project wherever it is commercially more viable and more economical for me to produce green ammonia, because I can understand that when I'm going to the export market, nobody is going to pay me a penny more for the green ammonia that I'll be producing, and it may come from any part of the world.
Yes, and regarding the bankability, is that one of the biggest challenge in your mind?
Regarding?
Bankability.
Oh, so as far as bankability is concerned, yes, there is a gap between the requirement of the bankers and the off-takers. First of all, I have to fill that gap whichever geography I'm in. The off-takers traditionally have not been entering into long-term contracts for their requirement of green ammonia, and therefore that's a big gap, because once I'm establishing this project, entire cost of the product is coming from the capex which I am establishing at the start of the project. And therefore, long-term contracts will be a requirement of the day, and that's what the financial institutions also have been looking for. So once a balance has been achieved between the requirement of the off-takers and the bankers, I don't see much of a problem in for various projects, whichever geography they are in. Obviously, the interest rates, etc., will depend on the country the projects are established, and the off-takers, mainly the off-takers. The balance sheet of the off-taker is going to play a more important part. But as you have already mentioned, the Green Hydrogen Bank established in Europe and in other parts of the world also, similar financial institutions will be coming up, will be sprung up when they are seeing such a large opportunity which will attract ultimately trillions of dollars of investment in the world. They have to think of some innovative solutions to make to capture this market and to make it attractive for the off-takers to enter into long-term contracts for their requirement of green ammonia. So as far as bankability of these projects is concerned, yes, it will depend again on the government policies, on the demand offtake, on firm contracts, firm price contracts for long terms that are entered into with the off-takers. These are some of the factors that will derive the bankability of the projects, and I'm sure that the banks will come together to capture this huge opportunity. They can't ignore it.
Yes, thank you, Vivek. I'll come back to you later. And Mr. Dinesh, you've been quiet for some while. Can you open up your camera and audio system?
Yeah, thank you very much. I was listening to the guy because we have internet issues, so I thought like it's good to have camera off. So I'm for you. Just go ahead, please.
Perfect. Now we have you here, so I'll force you to answer some questions. Saudi has been a pioneer and a leader in the region in terms of clean energy investment and development. So can you introduce to us a little bit more about the latest hydrogen activities in Saudi and in Aramco, and how you are going to planning for the future?
So I heard a previous panelist and they're talking about demand for the green hydrogen. The market doesn't create demands, the market creates needs. And that's a real basic, misalignment at this stage. Do you have a need for green hydrogen? Somebody is able to pay for that. And they need to find the niche market first, because overnight you cannot replace energy with the green hydrogen because there's a wide gap and there's steps up going there. For example, at this stage, green hydrogen is more expensive than blue hydrogen, even other resources. So who is able to pay for that extra? Because it's commodity, energy is commodity. However, if the green hydrogen become as a feedstock, it makes sense. For example, if you look into industries back in Australia, like a company which makes dynamites for the mining industry, which is the ammonium nitrate, and they always struggle with the raw material, which is raw gas, say methane, the price fluctuations, and they always struggle with price fluctuations. They find sometimes $9 to $10 per MMBTU gas price. That makes for them green hydrogen cheaper options as a raw stock, as feed material, in spite of having a methane. That basically reduces the cost of their plant because plant become very simple, and that's making the sense. So these kind of the need is in the market currently there. We need to find out and capitalize it, and then slowly perception increase, and then we can always grow the green hydrogen market. So that's my understanding. The second thing is green hydrogen at the moment is having a lot of technical issues. For example, the gas turbines, they cannot take more than 20% hydrogen, has to run with 80% methane. So we have to go one step at a time, but solid way. I understand that there's a lot of energy transition going on. The reason why I'm working on the world's largest CCS project in the MENA region to go for energy transition from carbon laden to carbon free, which could be at the moment blue, and potentially going to the green. As you know, that Saudi Arabia is going big way on green hydrogen in one of the areas called development in northern areas. So I see a very good fit that green is coming up slowly. They has to go and first define the market, need in the market, then create the demand. And definitely the cost is the paramount difference that you can see the charge them in the market at the moment. But the new technology, I presume, and the geopolitical issues, most important, would like to have every country to be self-sufficient on energy. For example, Australia or India, anybody else who can have a lot of natural resources like wind and solar, they have a very good fit to have their own independence on energy rather than having geopolitical issues changing or shaping, disturbing the economy and everything, right? So that's my take at the moment is, and I leave open space for you, the floor open for you to have some questions if you'd like to.
Yes, that reminds me of a recent debate happening in Europe, because as we mentioned that Europe has its Repower EU plan, which focuses heavily on green hydrogen, but there are also arguments suggesting that we should value blue hydrogen for this moment, because the priority at this moment would be to scale up the infrastructure. To make the system work, then we choose green hydrogen to chime into the system. I think that resonates with your understanding as well.
So true, like, I'm saying green hydrogen is a new energy stream coming up, which is cleaner, which is need of the people and need of the global requirements. But again, people cannot live without energy. So we have to have a viable replacement of current energy resource with the green, and it cannot be done in a day, because they need a huge investment, $1 trillion, right? But again, I'm saying at this stage, if comparing energy price from green to others, green is expensive, but there are areas where the green can establish themselves, and that basically catapult or give them opportunity to make it cheaper with more R&D and everything, get more time frame. For example, today, if I understand correctly, the things could be that way, like we have blue hydrogen, where people are cash rich, the who produce blue, they can always provide the cheaper options in the market, and they can also trade the carbon also. The green is coming up, the places where there's a good mix of wind and solar. For example, NEOM in Saudi Arabia, in South Australia, and all these places where the green can be competitive. The real concern at the moment is the cost, and the cost is not producing green hydrogen, green energy, but harnessing green energy as a product to transport from place A to place B. For example, if I have a solar directly going to the grid, is cheaper. But I want to put this energy back from Australia to, say, United States, become expensive because of transportation, the mean of storing, transporting, and everything. So that's why I'm saying there is some areas, and we need to work out in a better way. For example, how can we store green energy, and how can we transport cheaply, and where the technology is coming up. But again, the long way short, however, the green energy is cheaper in the case if to be used immediately as in the grid. As you talked about, somebody of the panelists told before, sending it directly to grid, we can do it. But again, the grid has limits.
Yes.
Like, we cannot dump as much as you can. You can dump only minimum, right? So all the stuff is to be taken into account.
Yes, and back to the theme of our panel discussion today, it will be fast-tracking clean hydrogen investment and scaling up that include green hydrogen and blue hydrogen. In the previous presentation by IRENA, Dolf pointed some figures, some numbers regarding the projects here globally and in MENA right now. There are not many projects in MENA to date. So as a developer, or we say an active stakeholder, how would you push forward for more projects landing in MENA? And what are the priorities you would like to suggest? And if you can have one advice for the government, what would the advice be? And for the private sector, what the advice be? I'm
saying the thing is very clear and very simple, rather than going complicated. See, like, if I'm in UK, sitting in UK is always starved in energy. If you can starve in energy because of sun is not here, so I don't put solar here. But UK winter is even more painful when wind comes in. So the wind can be used as a leverage to shield the energy crisis here. So looking at geography, you can find which the best way of expanding or going for the green. Like Middle East has everything. You got a solar, a lot of sunlight. But again, there's come issues like the dust and everything, which can make solar difficult to maintain, or maybe some challenges there. My advice to government is, unless you fix the carbon price, without carbon price fixing worldwide, it is difficult to have at this stage green going ahead, because there is always a market driver. Once carbon price is fixed, then the green has edge over others because they have carbon credit with them. At this stage, there is no global carbon price. Unless that is come into effect, the things will be like, going up and down, and direction is not very clear. So if the government really want to go ahead, they fix the carbon price for their country, start incentivizing this kind of project in the beginning. For example, carbon capture and sequestration project back in Saudi is heavily incentivized by the government as a stepping stone. Because then we can start building experience from there, improve our technology, improve everything, and make it cheaper. That's normally happens. So we need to have some kind of platforms to build the technology. To get the platforms there, to build technology, we need some pilot plant. To get some pilot plant, we need some like market feedback. And slowly we can create, test of the people to go green at no cost, competitively. If the green hydrogen is cheaper today, there's no questions, it can fly. The problem is it's not cheaper. So then it has to have some kind of distinctions, can have some differentiations in terms of incentivizing by the government, giving some kind of PR exercise. All has to come together from the government. Government should start like same as battery cars, start like looking into that perspective. So in general, I have following 3 areas. I think that basically allow green to go. First of all, those countries who doesn't have natural resources, they have opportunity for them to make them energy sufficient locally. Though it costs a little bit more, but looking into the foreign currency reserves and everything, and the global geopolitical issues, it is easier to go for green, a little bit higher price in the beginning, which basically as technology improve could be lower and lower and could be competitive. Second things, go for the market where really the hydrogen cost, green cost will not make a difference in the product. For example, going for the ammonium nitrate plant, where the product is very expensive and slight difference in the cost in the feed, but giving stability instead as a risk mitigations, making perfect sense, right? Thirdly, like if you have a pipeline, the big pipeline where there's no storage issues, for example, gas pipelines, where you can blend hydrogen up to 20%, then our storage cost is considerably low. For example, a country like India, where a big pipeline going in, if you can have green hydrogen put in the pipeline, the cost of that green hydrogen is much lower because we're not storing it. The storage cost is gone. The pipeline is going ahead. So on that perspective, we have to start with. And where the government should come in picture and start incentivizing and giving some, initial support to the small companies to come up, have R&DC and all this.
Yes, thank you, Dinesh. As much as I'd love to have you talk forever, we are reaching the end of Impact MENA. So as a wrap-up question, may I invite you as well as Mr. Karim and Mr. Vivek on stage to start our Easter egg round, because Easter is coming.
Sure.
Yes, so the principle of Easter egg round is to ask your panel colleagues one of the questions you'd like to ask most. So I think we can start with Dinesh. If you have any questions for Karim or for Vivek, they have to answer it. It's your chance.
For me is, I'd like to know that banker has to play a key roles in green hydrogen development, because once you sanction, loans to the companies, you could have strict guidelines and good adherence in terms of the carbon. So if you can offer a loan for green hydrogen at lower rate compared to other project, I think because taking as is a carbon mitigated options, then I think this is one of the best help you can provide to the industries. What do you say? What's your take on it?
Which speaker you'd like to direct to?
So who is a banker here? Like, who basically invest? It's Karim, right?
So I'm not a banker, but I know some stuff on financing. So
Yeah.
I think what's going on today is reflecting what you're saying, Mr. Dinesh, but in a different way. I think what we're seeing today is that there is a global mobilization for grants, for concessionary loans that effectively bring in bring down the ultimate cost of funding for the project. And I think that really serves what you're implying. We haven't seen banks giving preferential rates to green projects because more or less they're carrying the same risk as other projects that are being developed. However, we're seeing other entities being multilaterals or DFIs and so forth, giving concessionary slash grants kind of scheme. But we're also seeing a lot of the new infrastructure funds that have a focus for green and climate-driven mandates, that they're willing to accept lower IRRs when it comes to their equity participation when it comes to green projects. And I think that's also serving the same purpose, albeit from a different angle, which is to ultimately bring down the cost of funding and really make these projects competitive and commercially viable.
And true, I agree with you. That's this first step. Like any business start with the lending. And if lending starts supporting this kind of project on the basis that these are carbon-free projects, then it makes a lot of sense in terms of economics. And start from here, like bringing down rate of return from 10% to 5% is a huge change.
Yes.
And that's the first
Yes.
step I'm talking about. Yeah, this is the first step, which can be done easily.
So my question will be to Mr. Dinesh. What's your take in the short term, green or blue?
The short term depends on scale. If you talk about small scale, green can survive. Talk about big scale, green is still a long way to go. Depends on geopolitical reason and geopolitical scenarios and where you stand at the moment. For example, in India, because I born in India, I can tell something. There is the foreign cash reserve is one of the huge important factors in shaping the country economy. And if you can generate energy yourself inside at little bit higher cost rather than importing crude, and that makes sense for you, India. So for India point of view, I think country like where there is no much fossil fuel, green is the best way to go. That's why Mr. Modi is talking about, I heard from you in the beginning. There's a reason behind that, because the forex reserve, you can save even 20% more expensive energy at green will be still beneficial in terms of forex reserve, everything together.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you.
So you should not focus on MENA, I should
Yes,
focus on India. That's my request.
We can talk about offline because there are a lot of things that.
No, I'm saying the concept, what is going on, and the kind of government going up. The green at the moment is required government support, and where the forex and everything is very important. And the government incentives, the banker incentives, and the aligned the government, concept all together will make sense in the country which doesn't have much fossil fuel, but they are growing energy demand. People are ready to pay more price for energy. And looking at the kind of pollution and everything, the green energy has an added advantage, have differentiators. So you have everything. You have the people are ready to pay high cost of energy. It has differentiation because of pollution reductions. It is foreign reserve supports. So a lot of benefits for India point of view have to go full scale in India. Maybe some reason at the moment is not going ahead, but I think something we need to explore.
I would say that it's not going ahead. India is one of amongst the select league of countries which has already come out with the policy on green hydrogen, and the next part of the policy in the form of national hydrogen mission is going to be out very shortly. I think you'll see your thoughts embedded in that national hydrogen mission.
Agreed.
Yes, thank you. And I think, Karim, you are the only one with hands-on opportunity right now. Which question do you like to raise, and to which panel colleagues?
So I think it's Vivek's turn to answer a question. So Vivek, you've chosen Egypt as your first venture outside of India. So my question to you is, and putting Egypt aside, what is the number one factor you look at when you make a decision to enter a country when it comes to green hydrogen investments?
So the cost of renewable power and the taxation regime in the country, political stability, availability of or allocation of land by the government, because the large land requirement that we have, it's difficult to acquire in any part of the world. So these are 3 or 4 factors which really come on top of the mind when we select a geography for establishment of our project.
So, but you would argue that the intensity of wind and solar is really the backbone of any project when it comes to green hydrogen.
Intent of?
The intensity of the wind and solar resources.
Yeah, that's one of the major factors, definitely, because the 60 to 65% of the total cost when it comes to green ammonia is the renewable power. So the natural resources in the form of better solar and wind potential definitely play an important part in the whole economics and commercials.
So the reason why I'm asking this is because a lot of developers put a lot of stress on incentives, but ultimately it's the fundamentals that make the opportunity right. And then these add-ons or nice to haves are more to improve the numbers rather than really to make the case. So no matter what incentives you put in place, if you don't have the right natural resources that make this the right project, people are not going to come to you. Is my understanding correct?
You're absolutely right, and that's precisely the reason I'm not asking for any incentives from the government. I'm only asking for a level playing field, that if one of the geographies is offering some kinds of support to this kind of project, that same kind of support should come from the another geography also, so that you have a level playing field and the people are attracted towards your country, towards your geography to establish the projects. And therefore, I think in none of our discussions in these geographies when I'm deciding on, I'm asking for any incentives to go out of the pocket of the government. Only thing is I'm asking for some support to this industry, which is in its fledgling state. And just like any other industry which is in its infancy, during the first few years, some support from the government in the form of demand creation and other things are a must. That's what my take on it is. Direct support from the government, direct incentive from the government will help this industry? I don't think so.
So if I just expand this, why Egypt is, there are 3 reasons why Egypt is good. First of all, Egypt has a good mix of solar and wind. There are a lot of some solar, and in the nights the wind picks up. So any facility capacity factor is very high there. The combination of both. So we can have 24/7 renewable. Second, Egypt has water, unlike other MENA region. So water is very much required for this kind of green hydrogen, as I understand. So what I understand is if the government can support in terms of acquiring a land, because large area of land required, area required at the location where needed to be, where the good mix of solar and winds, and close to water supply can be makes available. And again, transport and road infrastructure and all that makes everything together as a good spot for the Egypt to be there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Dinesh. Thank you, Karim, and thank you, Vivek. The clock is ticking, but I think there will be more rooms for a physical discussion in our upcoming Connecting Green Hydrogen MENA in next March 14th to 16th in Dubai. We welcome you all here. And once again, I would like to thank everyone for taking the precious 2 hours. I hope you enjoy the live conversation as much as I do. Nevertheless, the impact won't stop here. There'll be more interesting content coming up by Leader Associates. Should you have any questions, or should you be interested in taking part in our following content, please don't hesitate to reach out using the following contact below. I look forward to meeting everyone in our next encounter, and that concludes our Impact MENA hydrogen session. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all.
Thank you once again.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you to our panelists and to Dr. Celal and to Mr. Dolf. Thank you so much for joining and contributing.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is the end, and have a lovely day to all of you.